Look at that sky. My people call these ones achagosa, from the root word achak, of course, which is energy, which is light. And we understand that that's energy and that's light up there. And that's what we are. We come from that place up there. We are energy, we are light. You'll have to forgive me if I stop once in a while and start having a cough. I've had this persistent cough for about 3 weeks now. Just won't go away. And I know. When it started, I woke up and I said, "Ah, damn, I got COVID." So I tested for about 4 days in a row, and it was a negative all the time. But the cough just never went away. Just a dry cough every once in a while to get a little fit. So please, you have a question? You just like putting up your hand. Same with me, it's not And so it's those stars. We are told that our existence transcends realities because of what we are. We are energy. We are light. And we were told that at one point, Kitcikisik, our Creator, had a thought, and whatever Creator thought about came into being. Creator thought about Astronomical. Astronomical was the rocks, and the rocks came into being. Creator thought about Tipiskawi, that night, and the night came into being. Creator thought about Kitcikisik, that light, and that light came into being. And when that light came into being, we're told we came into being as beings of light, being with energy. And we're told that we, like I said before, we roam the cosmos looking for new experiences, new understandings, new teachings, new perspectives, new awareness. And we were told that at one point there was a particular being that we've come to know as a Chagosisquel, Star Woman. And she was roaming the cosmos, and she came across this hole in the sky, which we call the Pleiades here on Earth. So that star, that image of that man is pointing at right there, that 7-pointed star, that's the Pleiades right there. And one of the stories, Achimuinak, we call them. Achimuinak means a narrative. I'm trying to get away from that term story, because that term story comes with a lot of connotations that refer to fairy tales and things like that. And a lot of these understandings from my people are not fairy tales. They have a deep meaning. And anyways, we look at that Kisik, that hole in the sky, and we're told that there was a being of energy that was roaming the cosmos on the other side of reality. And she came across that hole in the sky, and she looked through that hole in the sky, and she saw Earth. And she saw the waters, she saw the mountains, she saw the clouds, she saw the lightnings, she saw the great plains, she saw the forests, she saw all the animals, and she was very intrigued. She wanted to come and visit. At that point, there was no humans in this place. And so, but she knew that she couldn't traverse that hole in the sky, that portal. She needed assistance. But she also knew that in places such as this, where these holes in the sky existed, there was doorkeepers, there was gatekeepers that looked after that portal. And so she, in this part of our reality, there was a being called Gugu Minaga Asis. And Gugu Minaga Asis means grandmother net maker. And we've come to know her as Grandmother Spider. And Grandmother Spider sits on that Milky Way. For Western astronomers, there's a constellation right inside the Milky Way called Cassiopeia, or Cassiopeia, the W in the sky. And you can see the W in the sky right above the fin of that fish there. Cassiopeia, the W. And we're told that is part of a larger constellation called Kuku Managa Asis, Grandmother Spider. The inner point of that W represents the head of the spider, and her outer front legs represent the front legs of the spider, and her body hangs off that Milky Way. The rear point of her body hanging off that Milky Way is close to that hole in the sky. And we were told she was the one that granted access to that hole in the sky. And so Chagosisquel, this particular being of energy, approached Gugu Minaga Asis and asked her for assistance. And so Gugu Minaga Asis said, yes, I'll give you assistance, but there's 3 conditions that you have to meet in order to go visit down at that place. And so Achagos said, okay, what are these conditions? So Grandmother Spider said, the first condition is when you go down there, you have to take a physical form. Because as being an energy, beings of light, you can't interact with that reality down there, that physical reality down there, if you don't take a physical form. And so Achagos agreed to that. So Star Woman, the next condition was that when she went down there, she had to bring a gift with her. And that gift was to represent where she came from, so she would know where she came from and where she had to return to when she was finished her visit. And so she agreed to that. And the last condition was she couldn't stay long. So again, she agreed to that. So what we're told is, Gugumanaga sees Grandmother Spider. She sent a single strand of webbing through that hole in the sky. And Star Woman attached herself to that hole in that strand of webbing. And she got lowered to the ground. And when she touched the earth, she took a physical form. And that physical form she took were of the elements, the four elements that were here: air, earth, water, and fire. And that's how the physical body came about. Those four elements interacted and made who we are as Inenyo. And that directly refers to what we call ourselves, my people in Cree, Inenyo, of the four. Niho, we are the four-bodied. And it represents that original teaching, that we come down from the sky and we take a physical form, and we become physical, and we interact with this world, and then when we're finished here, we revert back to energy and continue our journey. So she came down, she took a physical form, and she was the first one here, we were told. She was the first human being at this place, Tipiskawi, this earth. And the gift she brought with her was a 7-pointed star blanket. So in the image up there, you can see that 7-pointed star blanket. And that 7-pointed star blanket represents those stars of the Pleiades. At that time, they were 7 visible stars. Nowadays, you can see 5, you can see 6, some people can see 7, and some people can even see 8. So depending on because there's so much garbage floating on up there. And there's so much pollution, light pollution. But anyways, so that gift she bought was the 7-pointed star blanket. And that reminded us of that place where we came from. So when we come here, we're wrapped in a star blanket, and it represents that home where we come from. And then we live our lives. So Achagos said, okay, that's the gift she bought, and as for staying long, how long is long for being of energy? So she stayed a lifetime. And so we come here and we stay a lifetime. And that single strand of webbing that Star Woman came down on, and when she touched the earth and took a physical form, we come to know that as the umbilical cord, and that's how we all get to this place. And we take a physical form. We come as spirits, as energy, as light, and we take a physical form. And we live in our mothers. Again, that's in reference to Achagos, Star Woman, the first one here, the first light giver. And so as more and more of us came to this place, one point somebody said, hey, we should honor Achagos, we should honor Star Woman as being the first one here and allowing us to come to this place. And so what they did is they had a council and they decided that they put an extra star on that star blanket. So that 7-pointed star blanket became an 8-pointed star blanket. Because that extra point represented Achagos, Star Woman, the first one here. We call her Kuku'uminau in Cree. Kuku'uminau, the first grandmother. And she was the first one here. And so nowadays you'll see a star blanket, usually they have 8 points, and one of those points represents Achagos, Star Woman, Kuku'uminau, that first grandmother. And that's one of the understandings that we have of that star blanket, is that it reminds us of where home is, and that we're just visitors from Tipiskawi, this earth. And as visitors, we should treat this place in a proper manner, in a proper, respectful way, because the ones that are coming behind us, if we leave a lot of garbage and crap here, then that's what they're going to inherit. And we're told these teachings. And so Achagos, Star Woman, in the research that I've done, when I heard this understanding, when I heard this narrative, it made so much sense to me. It just about made me cry, because all my life I had a really hard time with structured religion. I had a really hard time with because I seen what structured religion did to my people, Indigenous people all over the world. How that colonization process and how that religion was imposed upon them. And I had a very hard time with that. And I didn't accept those doctrines that they gave to me. And this was from a very early age, because I remember I was 6, and I was from when I was 1, when I was born until I was 5. I lived out on the land with my grandparents, my mother, my father, and my extended family, all my aunties and uncles. My grandfather looked at us. He had a camp with about 50 people, an extended family, and we all lived at that camp. And he looked after us. He looked up through hunting, fishing, and trapping. That's what he did. And he made a good living at that, and that's what he did. That's how we lived our lives. And then in the late 1950s, early 1960s, on the Saskatchewan River, hydro development was being put forward. The idea of hydro development. So they're throwing up dams all over the place. And where they threw up dams on the Saskatchewan River, they flooded out thousands of people that lived off the land. And my family was one of them. And so we moved into the town of Paw, the closest urban area. And of course my parents, my grandparents, my aunties and uncles didn't have no employable skills other than trapping, fishing, and hunting. And because they couldn't do that no more because they were flooded, my parents returned to alcohol, and I got adopted. I got adopted when I was 6 years old, and I got sent to school. And in the weekends, one of the schools I was sent to was called Sunday school. And I remember sitting in Sunday school one day. I was 6 years, maybe turning 7, and I wasn't really listening to what was going on. I didn't want to be there really, but I got sent there. And anyways, over in the corner of my hearing, I heard somebody say, "And all your relatives are in hell." And I said, "What?" And I said, "Excuse me, what did you say?" And he said, "All your relatives, if your ancestors never took Jesus Christ as their Savior, then they're all in hell." And I looked at her and I said, "You're telling me my great-grandfather, my Chapan, my grandparents are in hell because they didn't accept Jesus Christ as their Savior?" I said, "Yes." I said, "Well, that's where I want to be." I got up and I left. I walked out, and I was 6 at that time, so at that time I had this concept established in my head that how my grandparents lived their lives and how they provided for their people on that land and how they interacted with that reality. That's what I wanted to do. That's what I believed in. And to this day, I still believe that. And so anyways, a child says Square of Starwood, she came down to this place, and she took a physical form, and she stayed here. And through her, we all come to this place. And so, for my people, this is specifically for my people that I understand this, every ceremony that's done in Henyo, Niho, every ceremony is done in honor of a squirrel, honor of a woman, every ceremony. Even the Sundance, Ukamawatik, that Sundance tree, when you put weaponas and those prayer flags on it, you put it on, it's a skirt. All the Sundancers, the men, they wear skirts. Again, why did they do that? They do that to honor the first one here, Uko Mino, the grandmother, the first grandmother. We go to Matutsan, that's Wet Lodge. Matutsan, that's it in the Cree language. Matutsan derives from the root word Maato, which means to cry. You go in that lodge and you cry for pity, for life. And that's what our grandmothers did. That's what our mothers did. That's what our aunties and uncles did. That's what our sisters will do. They cry for life. They cry for us. They do these things for us. And in this colonial process, a lot of men have forgotten about that. A lot of men are now saying, there's a big debate over in my country where I'm from, that women shouldn't be doing this, women shouldn't be doing that, women have to wear skirts, women got to do this, women got to do that. And my daughter, growing up now, she's been following me around, and she comes to ceremony with us all the time, and she asks questions. One of the questions she asks is, how come women got to wear skirts all the time, and men don't have to wear skirts? Men don't have to wear ribbon shirts when they go to ceremony. How come only women are singled out for that? And then somebody told her, oh, that's because a creator will get confused, or a spirits will get confused because you're not wearing a skirt. And she looks at her and she says, well, they must be really confused because they go to Sundance, everybody's wearing a skirt, even the men. And they don't know what to say. or they tell her, women shouldn't be on their time, and when they come to ceremony, we're on their time because they're too powerful. And the first question she has is, Too powerful for who? So she comes up with all these questions. She's going to change the world. And I'm very proud of that. But yeah, in the research that we've done in regard to Atsagasuk, those stars, it's all in reference to a squirrel. Everything that is done is in reference to a squirrel. The women, because they were the first ones here. She was the first one here, Atsagasuk Kugu Mina, the first life giver. And through her, we all come to this place. So that's one of the understandings of Kitcikisik, that hole in the sky. The thing about Indigenous astronomy is that there's multiple understandings to anything up in that sky. If you look at Kitcikisik, the hole in the sky, one understanding I just relayed to you about Atsagasuk and about Kugu Minau and about Kitcikisik, the hole in the sky. But there's an understanding that goes with, when you look at those stars, it's also called the sacred fire. Kitcikisik, it was called. It means medicine fire. And it's the place where we're told where the hot rocks are heated up from a Otsenhkta, that sweat lodge. And in the winter sky, the sweat lodge, Otsenhkta, is in one side of the sky, and the sacred fire is on the other side of the sky. And if you draw a line directly across, you run right across the North Star. So there's the sweat lodge, there's the altar, and there's the sacred fire, and they're all in a line. And for my people, that's how we set up our sweat lodge. And I'm sure for a lot of indigenous cultures, they follow that same pattern, the same instructions, because they're up in the sky. So a lot of these stars and constellations I'm speaking about, they have multiple understandings to them. It drives Western astronomers crazy, because I'll be up here talking to them about the Big Dipper, and I'll start talking about Tipiskawi. Then the next thing, about 5 minutes later, I'll be calling it Otsenhkta, the fisher. 5 minutes after that, I'll be calling it Migsumi, which means the eagle staff. And somebody will stop and say, wait. You just called it Tipiskawi, the Great Bear. Now you're calling it something else, and then you're calling it something else. Which one is it? It's all of them. It's all of them. Because everything in that sky is fluid. Everything in that sky is in constant motion, because energy is in constant motion. That's our understanding of reality. Indigenous understanding of reality is everything is in constant motion. Everything is fluid. Everything is inclusive. Everything reacts on everything else, and everything depends on everything else. And there's no compartmentalizing. There's no say that this is science and that's all that is, and over here is English and that's all that is. Over here is another language and that's all it is. It's all fluid and it all flows into one. And there's repercussions, there's reverberations, there's responsibilities that go with all these things. And everything is dependent on everything else. And so, when you talk about the stars, that emphasizes that point exactly, because there's multiple understandings out there. They say there's 88 constellations that the Western astronomers identify in that sky, in the Northern Hemisphere and the Southern Hemisphere. I had the opportunity to be standing outside on the northern plains of Saskatchewan one cold September night, outside of a city called Saskatoon. And there's a place called Opaskwayak. It's a heritage park. And it's one of the sacred places of my people. And we were standing out there on the plains looking at that night sky. And that elder told me, if you look at this night sky, every star that you can see with the naked eye, every single star you can see with the naked eye, prior to the coming of the Europeans, our people had a constellation for each of those stars. They had a name, they had a song, there was a ceremony given. And there was understandings about each one of these stars. But not only that, there was multiple understandings about each one. So if you look up in the night sky, there's thousands and thousands of ceremonies, thousands of narratives, and they're all instructions. He looked at that sky and he said, this was our first educational system. This was our first computer. This was our first reality right here. And due to the historical trauma that happened to our people, we lost 85% of that knowledge base. So now, you think about it like this. You have a room with 100 people, or a village with 100 people in that village. And everybody knows one word to a 100-word song. And everybody gets together and they recite their one word and they form a beautiful song. And everybody contributes. Everybody has a part to play. And so then everybody